And now, you're tuned in to All Factors Considered. Here are your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
What's going on, folks? Welcome back to another episode of All Factors Considered. It's UFC 263, big time pay-per-view. We got two title fights. The undisputed middleweight title is on the line between Israel, the Last Stylebender, Adesanya, in a rematch against Marvin, the Italian Dream, Vettori. And then, of course, we got Deiveson, Deus Da Guerra, Figueiredo, defending his men's flyweight belt against the baby assassin, Brandon Moreno. But you know, I can't break none of this stuff down unless I got my co-host here with me. Hey, AJ, what's going on, brother? Tell me off the bat, what is the title fight that you believe to be the people's main event tonight?
Well, since UFC has been the sport of what have you done for me lately, I'm going with Deus Da Guerra, the Deus Da Guerra fight Moreno, because, man, those ones pleased us a lot lately. It's going to be a lot of fun. Who you got, Derick?
I have to go with you the same way, man. You know, we're going to talk about it in a second, but this rematch at the top of the card, Adesanya versus Vettori, might not nearly be as deserved as the Deus Da Guerra versus Baby Assassin one. That one was a crazy bout. But we got 5 bouts to cover here today. And before we do anything, AJ, you see it? I got it in the corner of the screen. We need to do some ratings right here. I got my pen and my pad. Make sure that I can write down what we think. And if you need to make it a little bit bigger so we could see, I gotcha. Wow, look at that. All right, let's go. 1 to 10. What are you thinking on this one, my man? Well, personally, real quick, man, I just think that this is an interesting concept, right? I think we can give it some points just for its dynamic nature and things of that nature. But give me your honest, real deal opinion on this one. 1 to 10, AJ.
I kind of like this one, Derick. I'm gonna give it about a 7. I like where they're going. You know what it reminds me of? Old school Power Rangers style. With like the triangles in the back and all the colors. I like it a lot.
Okay, well that's a step up from last week, right? Last week I think you gave it like a 5 or a 6 or something crazy like that. But I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I'm gonna have to go critic. I think I got an eye for the aesthetic. You know, I got an eye for color schemes and whatnot. And I think this one took a big time step backwards, my man. So last week we got, I gave that a 7 out of 10. This one, man, this is like a 4, bro. You know, because first off, you're not really highlighting nobody. The color scheme is cool, but it's too vibrant. It feels like they should be fighting in Jamaica or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, man. I don't want to be too harsh, but I think we need to step it up, especially 2 title fights on the line. This is reminiscent to the UFC, I think 261, where it was like 3 titles on the line or whatever. But anyways, yeah. So I'm gonna go. What did I give that? Did I give it 4 out of 10? Yeah, I'm gonna go 4 out of 10.
Yep.
You gonna go 7 out of 10. We'll keep that logged in for, you know what I'm saying, the weeks to come. But with that being said, AJ, record recap, nothing really changed. 61-44 for me, 48-57 for you. We're looking to get back on track this upcoming week, but let's do what we do best, brother. Let's talk some sleepers, my man.
It's time for some fight night.
If you ain't paying attention, you're gonna sleep on me and I'm gonna wake you up.
All right, AJ, so there's a lot of really, really good prelim fights. There's 14 fights on this card, but break it off with your first sleeper for UFC 263.
You're right, Derick. There's a lot of really good fights on this card, man. And first up for me, I'm going for Faraz Zion versus Luigi Vendramini, excuse me. Faraz Zion, man, he's long, lanky, young, and very talented. Proved he's really well-rounded in his last fight, and the sky's the limit for this young kid. Luigi Vendramini, sure, he might have a hard name to say, but we got to put this one in the memory bank because he's here to stay, all right? Fights at a crowd pace. I expect this one to be very exciting. Now, this is a sleeper to me, Derick, because both of these guys are young in their career and very, very dangerous. Don't blink. This one's going to be fun. Who you got for your first?
I like that. Don't blink, man. We definitely need some of those, man. But the way I'm going to break this down is I'm going to break it down like it's my homies, you know what I'm saying, that's at the crib that's like, yo, what should I watch before the main title fight comes on? Listen, Movsar Evloev facing off against Mean Hakeem Dawodu is a featherweight matchup that you are not going to want to miss. Evloev has been more or less a killer, a mauler, a grappler, somebody who is going to take you to deep waters and just absolutely drown you. Got good striking, got really, really good grappling. That's where it comes into. But he's facing off against a dude whose nickname is Mean for a reason. He packs a real deal punch. This is a striker versus a grappler contest, but it's a really, really good one because Evloev is 14-0. No one is really giving him any type of trouble. And Mean Hakeem Dawodu, he cracked the rankings recently in the 145 division, and let's see if he's here to stay. So that's going to be my first sleeper, AJ. Who you got next?
My last sleeper, Derick. This one's going to be a fun one. We brought up one of these names before, but Steven Peterson versus Chase Hooper, all right? Steven Peterson, he's a tough fighter known for his power and all-around skill while come fighting out of Fortis MMA. Now, Chase Hooper, we've ragged on him a little bit for his striking, but he's still very much on the rise, and he really needs to show that his hands have improved since his last outing, all right? Now, this is a sleeper to me because it seems to me that the UFC is kind of putting a real deal test for Chase Hooper. We saw, like I said, we saw his hands a little lacking, and Peterson can easily drop a KO. And for that reason, anyone could go to sleep at any point, even if Chase Hooper decides to go for the submission. So I'm adding this one to the sleeper category. Who's yours, Derick?
All right, my man. So my last sleeper for UFC 263 is a fight that's really buried in the prelims, but I'm going to tell you this is a sleeper because of the implications going into it. I got some women flyweights, Lauren Murphy facing off against Joanne Calderwood. This is a title eliminator. This is who is going to, this fight, the winner is going to decide who faces off against the queen, Valentina Shevchenko, next, man. I'm not going to say we feeding them to the wolves, but I will say we got a Muay Thai striker in Calderwood facing off against, once again, another grappler, another mauler, someone who could lay on you and, not really allow you to get up, but elbow your face in the process, man. And Lauren Murphy, man, she's mean. Joanne Calderwood, JoJo got a mean streak too. She's a Raider fan, and that's how we get down out here. So shout out to her. And listen, with that being said, man, I think that's all we got for the sleepers right there, man. Let's talk some real deal business, my man.
Here's to another main card breakdown, courtesy of your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
And you know what, AJ? I just wanted to mention these right before we actually start breaking them down for real. There's a couple of prelims that I should have just shouted out that I didn't, that are going to be really good. Matt Frivola, he gets a last-minute opponent. Frank Camacho got into a car accident, so you know what I mean? Rest up to the man, all the good energies to the man, Frank the Crank, right? But Terrence McKinney, former LFA fighter, he steps in replacement on short notice. That's going to be a banger. Eric Anders versus Darren Stewart. I mean, need we say more? It's going to be a rematch. The last one ended in a no contest due to, it was either an eye poke or a nut shot or something like that, right, AJ? But it's going to be fireworks, man. And then Drew Dober versus Brad Riddell. Brad Quake Riddell in the featured prelim. Going to be some bangers, folks. Clearly, it's the free portion, so you better tune in. But with that being said, we here to break down some main card action, my man. We got the Bear Jew, Paul Craig, in a light heavyweight contest against Jamahal Sweet Dreams Hill, man. Paul Craig opens up as a plus 240 underdog against a minus 300 favorite in Hill. My first question to you, AJ, this is a clear matchup simply because it's the contrast of styles, right? You got a grappler in Paul Craig versus a dude who will literally knock your face off in Jamahal Hill. Off the bat, man, why do you think this matchup was made? Who do you think is being tested more? Do you think Craig is being tested more or Hill is being tested more in this matchup? Because Craig has a little more experience.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that's what I'm going to tend to lean towards more for the answer. I think Craig is a little more experienced. So I think Jamahal is going to have a little bit more of a test on his hands, especially Paul Craig might be a, submission specialist, super well-rounded. He's going to get any amount of takedowns and then submission attempts as he wants, basically. But he's very fast on that front foot. He's a very light front kick, and he can bang, man. He can throw some serious, real deal power. But Jamahal Hill, he's just kind of that young gun. We don't know what's coming. So I think that's where that underdog aspect comes into play right there. Where Jamahal Hill, he throws from the hip and throws heat all day long. Makes it a fun fight. Who do you think? Who's going to be tested more?
Well, listen, man, I honestly think that Hill probably is going to be tested just because it's like in his last fight, he fought Ovince St. Preux, who is a real deal submission specialist as well. Like he'll fight you on the feet, but he can submit. I mean, it's the Von Preux choke now for a reason, right? But with that being said, man, Paul Craig, he reminds me of a Ben Askren in a way. You know what I mean? Now, his striking isn't nearly as rudimentary as Ben Askren's is. However, that he sets up the striking simply to grapple. Like he's not sitting there like, I want to box you. That's not necessarily what he wants. And as you pointed out, in his last fight against Shogun Hua, it was the rematch, right? I believe it was the last fight. It was one of his recent fights. Craig opened up with his Muay Thai stance. You know what I mean? Very light on that front leg. And it reminded me for a second because I'm like, okay, you're going to use some Muay Thai kicks or whatever. He got a really good teep kick, which is, you know what I mean? I definitely enjoy that. But the way that he stood, it made me kind of feel like, oh, are you about to take like a Taekwondo approach to this fight? You know what I mean? Are you going to just try to kick, do it all over the place? Because he doesn't really use his hands. He might throw a jab, he might throw a big right cross or whatever, but he ended up just focusing on the teeps, and I think that he kept that front leg light because Shogun Hua was threatening with that calf kick, right? So with that being said, AJ, that's something that we need to consider. Jamahal Hill isn't much of a calf kick thrower necessarily, you know what I mean? He likes to use the hands. He opens up in a very sweet boxing stance too, man, a very wide-legged. It's interesting because it's a wide-legged like Deontay Wilder boxing stance, but at the end of the day, being that he has that boxing stance goes to show you that this dude has a tool that a lot of other MMA fighters don't possess, right? Which is real technical capabilities on the hands. Paul Craig, man, this is the question that I have for you, AJ. Does Paul Craig, like he does in so many other fights, does he walk you down Demian Maia style so he can grab the takedown? Does he do that to Jamahal Hill, or do you see Jamahal Hill saying, no, I'm going to do that. I'm going to walk you down? Jamahal Hill has to be careful and apply his pressure very educated and strategic so he doesn't get taken down, because he's got a 53% takedown defense. It's not the greatest, man. So give me your thoughts just off that bat. Who wins that battle, AJ?
I was thinking of exactly that, Derek. Who's going to be winning the back and forth in the pressure match? And this one's going to be hard. Paul Craig, he doesn't mind coming in and letting the pressure advance on him so that that way he can shoot the takedown, get underneath, go for the submission. But at the same point, Jamahal Hill, he kind of starts a little slow, at least in that last fight in the OSP. They were taking pictures a little bit. They were going out. And then once Hill started to get tagged up a little bit, that's when the fire came out. You see him start to bite down on his mouthpiece and start swinging. And if he comes out like that, if Jamahal Hill comes out like he's fighting in the second round right away, I think he's going to lead the dance. I think he's going to do a lot better off the front foot, going, pushing. But at the same point, he's got to utilize that 79-inch reach and utilize that advantage he has inherently and just stay from the outside, picking apart, push in, push out, maintain that distance. It's going to be a hard one, though, with somebody who's experienced like Paul Craig. What do you think, Derek?
I mean, I absolutely agree with you, man. It's going to be a difficult task, a very tall task, but if he can overwhelm him early, I think that's probably Hill's best chance at winning, in my personal opinion, just because the longer the fight goes, if Hill gets a little bit tired and then Craig wraps him up, tangles up those legs, and then goes for a heel hook or goes for an armbar or, a rear naked choke, whatever the case may be, I just always like these grapplers who can last throughout the entire fight. Like all 3 rounds, they could choke you to sleep. You know what I mean? For Jamahal Hill, we've seen him fight 5 rounds before, I believe, maybe once. But have we seen him do crazy wrestling defense, you know what I'm saying, throughout an entire fight? Because that's the thing that tires you out. That's what we always talk about is like, yeah, it's cool, you're a wrestler, whatever the case may be, but by using your best tool, your wrestling, I'm not saying that's Hill's whatsoever, but by using that tool, you're going to cost your fatigue, you know what I'm saying? So will the conditioning be on pace? Ultimately, I think that a good quote to use for this fight, AJ, in terms of Jamahal Hill, is death by 1,000 feints. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? Like, I think that when you have a rudimentary striker, like Paul Craig, I'm not saying that his striking is bad. I don't want to say that. But when you pressure him and you make him go backwards, he does the Dusko Todorovic. He just goes backwards. He doesn't circle out. He always goes backwards and puts his chin high in the air like he's just trying to escape the punch by, lifting his chin, which we know is a cardinal sin. So 1,000 feints by Jamahal Hill is going to freeze up the offense of Paul Craig, is probably going to disrupt that timing. And the best chance that I think that Paul Craig has is he gets that blast double and he goes to work and just keeps Hill on the ground the entire time. So I don't have too much necessarily to say about this, except, let's just talk about the accomplishments and those things, right? Paul Craig, he's a BJJ brown belt. He's tied for the second most submission wins at light heavyweight with 6, and he has 5 total fight of the night bonuses. These are still young kind of fighters, so they don't get the most accolades, right? Jamahal Hill, BJJ blue belt. He's a former regional champ at 205, and his nickname is Sweet Dreams for a reason, because he'll knock you to hell out. 4 knockouts, 4 decision wins, but 12 submission wins for Paul Craig out of his 14 total. At the end of the day, Paul Craig is on a 3-fight win streak, and Jamahal Hill's on an 8-fight win streak. And let's not forget, he should be on a 9-fight win streak because his fight with Klidson Abreu got called a no contest because he got tested positive for marijuana, which is like, now we should just expunge all of that, right? But listen, that's neither here nor there. AJ, who is your pick and why for this contest?
Derek, I think this one's going to be a grinder of a match, very fast paced, but I'm going with the Bear Jew KO round 2. Paul Craig is going to grind it out, get it done. And I actually expect, and this is coming from somebody who loves scene striking, I expect Paul Craig to shoot for the takedown, grind it out all day long. It's going to be on the ground. If Jamahal Hill can stand up, it's going to be a lot of a very fun fight. Who you got, Derek, and why?
Well, AJ, I'm going to take something from your book. I'm going to take something from what you said many, many weeks ago. But oftentimes we will refer to these strikers and we'll say they have no takedown defense. You better been working on your sprawls, right? But sometimes the best takedown defense is a clean left hook, my man. But this time for Jamahal Hill, I think it's not going to be that left hook. I think it's going to be that left cross. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going Jamahal Hill. I think that he overwhelms him in the first round, knocks him out. KO, round 1, sweet dreams, Jamahal Hill, man. I love that nickname too, man. But with that that being said, man, we move on to this is big implications, man. And first off, let's just make this note. Belal Muhammad, right, fighting on the same card as Leon Edwards, man. And it was funny, he posted up a little picture and they was doing the poster signings, and he was all like, yeah, I'm gonna get my revenge. And it was him poking Leon Edwards in the eye, but like on the poster. You know what I'm saying? I just love, he's just such a like goofy, funny dude, you know what I'm saying? But it must be heart-wrenching in a way that, you know, now you're fighting what, fourth fight, you know, or second fight on the main card, but you're fighting underneath Leon Edwards after that. You know, they probably gonna see each other backstage or whatever and just be like, what's up, bro? I don't know if it's beef like that, but anyways, man, let's talk about Demian Maia opening up as a plus 200 underdog versus Belal Muhammad as a minus 240 favorite. Let's just talk about odds for a second, AJ. Is that not a little like plus 200? Like, I get it, but at the same time, this dude can literally, once again, he could submit you at any given time in the fight. Now, I think that this is plus 200 because Demian Maia is 43 years old, and he's about, 11 years older than Belal Muhammad, man. So what I do, AJ, real quick, let me just get this off. So sometimes when I'm just chilling at the house, I'm just doing my thing, man. I got UFC Fight Pass, right? So I'll just put on old fights from, you know what I mean, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever the case may be. And oftentimes you'll just see the headliner, right? It'll be UFC, 101 or whatever, UFC 98, and you watch all the headliners, and you're like, wow, look at these dudes who are still around, who are so young back in the day. You know what I mean? The Mike Bispings, the, Demian Maias, all these type of cats, right? And Demian Maia is a fucking killer, bro. This dude has always been a killer. It's incredible. It's impeccable to see the man compete at 43 years old because he's been doing this thing for a long, long time, AJ. And with that being said, I think that the odds makers probably should have put a little more respect on his name. But Belal Muhammad, remember the name for a reason. The dude is a legitimate threat, man. So let's break it down. Let's start. And actually, you take it away, AJ. Well, how do you see this fight playing out? When you first saw it, were you heavy on one fighter or heavy on the other fighter? Did you think that this could be a toss-up? What was just your natural gut inclination? Not analyst, but gut inclination.
My natural gut inclination is me, man. I was wondering why Demian Maia is still fighting. Like after the Gilbert Burns absolute domination of a left hook, he really ate probably 6-7 super necessary shots at the end, as the saying goes. But it just, to me, was not a good look. You have a 43-year-old dude getting clipped with the left hand, and he was already out, and he was staring at the sky, just like waiting for Gilbert Burns to just land 5 or 6 of those super necessary shots. And it just wasn't a good look to me. So personally, when I saw Demian Maia still fighting, that's what I thought. I was like, damn, this dude's still around. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe his first UFC appearance was UFC 71. And they were still naming these like Battle of the Hill and like crazy stuff like that, man. Like weird names. Like that's how old this dude's been fighting. Oh, yeah. Don't get me wrong. I agree. They should have put some respect on his name because this dude can easily choke you out. He's still a killer. And fighting at 6'1" against a dude who's 5'11", like the stats are there. He has the experience. He has all the know-how to go get it done. But does he have that youth and that vigor? I don't know. Personally, I see this fight playing out a little bit slow, a little bit not necessarily exciting. Sure. Belal Muhammad, he's kind of an undersized fighter, so I don't think he's going to be pushing the pace. I think it's going to be people taking pictures the whole time, looking for counter shots, kind of just looking for their moment to shine and do what comes natural to each fighter, whether that's taking them down or just pointing out a win. How I see Belal Muhammad doing it. What do you think?
Well, I just want to ask you this really quickly, man, because you're saying it might be a taking pictures type of contest. This is another matchup where both fighters like to be the pressure fighter. Like Demian Maia, he wants to pressure you with strikes, grab the single leg. You know what I mean? It was even pointed out. I think Michael Bisping pointed it out in his last fight or whatever. He's like, that's literally the game plan almost every single time. Belal Muhammad, what did he do against everybody except Leon Edwards? He backs you up against the fence, and then he starts going for the single leg, right? So they're very similar in a certain way. However, my question was, can Belal Muhammad, would he risk it? You know what I mean? Would he risk that strategy and say, I'm going to get close enough to you to where you can grab me, and if you get me on the ground, this might be a really, really long night. It is important to know Belal Muhammad has never been submitted. But Demian Maia is a 5th degree BJJ black belt dude who's got 14 submissions. He actually has the most submission wins in the welterweight division with 6, man. So this is a very, very dangerous matchup. But to answer your question, how do I really see this one kind of playing out? Who's going to do what? I think Belal Muhammad is going to focus on the movement. I think he's going to take advantage of Demian Maia's age because, like you said, youth and vigor, right? Those are things you can never get back as you age. There's no magic pill. Maybe some TRT or something like that. You know what I'm saying? But there's no magic pill that gives you the youth and vigor. But I will say that Demian Maia, what he has in his grappling acumen, he lacks in his speed, man. He is slow. And he wasn't always this way. He's 43 years old, man. So let's cut the man, a little bit of slack, right? But listen, I think that Belal Muhammad is going to be on the bike. I think he's going to be using a lot of movement, but not evasive movement to make sure Demian Maia isn't getting a hold on one of his legs or something of that nature. I think that he goes to the well with his strikes, because one thing about Demian Maia, he has these big feints, big movements. Everything he does is big, right? And sometimes being so big, he gets out of position and gets caught. And Belal Muhammad, what he showed me against a fight, like when he fought Takashi Sato, right? He was going to the body. He was going right hand to the body, left hook up top. You know what I'm saying? He was definitely going to the well on that combination. But what it showed is that if you get caught in those mid-range movements, Belal Muhammad could put 2 or 3 on you real quick. Like, he's got this underrated speed, man. And I don't want to make this too hyping up on Belal Muhammad, you know what I'm saying? But I just think that this is just one of those situations where the only reason he's fighting Maia is because Leon Edwards wouldn't give him the rematch, and Belal Muhammad does deserve an opportunity to jump up the rankings. Would you agree?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
So let's just say worst case scenario, AJ, before we actually go a little more in depth in this, worst case scenario, Demian Maia pulls the upset on Belal Muhammad. Is that not like the most tragic set of events to happen to a fighter? Because arguably, if he would have beat Belal Muhammad, he'd be up there for a title shot, or one fight away from a title shot, right? So this is kind of a lose-lose. To me, the pressure is on Belal Muhammad. I think that Demian Maia has very little pressure. He's like, dude, I'm a 43-year-old man. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm coming off of a loss. I will say Demian Maia, I think he's had the longest active win streak at 170 with seven fights in a row. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, AJ, listen, how does Belal Muhammad or Demian Maia do it, whoever you're going for? How do they get it done?
Well, I want to go back to the comment I made earlier where I said I think they're going to be taking pictures. And I think that's only because they both have a very similar style. Yeah. Like you said, they're both going to be going back and forth, pressuring each other. And I agree. Demian Maia, he has these very long, lanky punches. And what he does when he starts to get a little fatigued, he'll start looping his shots. And that's how he got caught last time with the Gilbert Burns hook. But how I see this fight playing out, man, I think it's going to be, like I said, back and forth, up and down. And I'm really going for Belal Muhammad by decision. Mm-hmm. I'm really, like I said, I don't know if this one's going to be the most exciting fight to watch. I think Belal is good in that medium to close up range, but at the same point, they're both very good grapplers. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly how it plays out. I don't know if I would say I'm super excited for this one, but I definitely think Belal Muhammad deserves a chance to move up, as well as Demian Maia has a chance to take some shine right here. He's got nothing to lose. His back's against the fence. He's 43 years old. Man, it'd be good to see him get a KO win or a submission win and just kind of re-solidify that the old dogs still have a foothold in this game. Who you going with and why?
Well, let's just talk about really quickly Demian Maia, man. This dude, all 3 rounds, there's only going to be a 3-rounder. In all 3 rounds, he's going to be absolutely dangerous. Every time that he gets put on his back or he gets in somebody's guard, even Gilbert Burns, a great submission specialist, right? When he fought Gilbert Burns and he had Gilbert Burns in his full guard, he immediately went for arm locks. He immediately went for heel hooks. He'll use a heel hook. He'll threaten the heel hook just so he can get away from you and get out of there. You know what I mean? He'll put you in these bad positions to where you don't want to get tangled up in his legs. And that's going to make me think that Belal Muhammad is going to have to think a little bit. And that's the last thing that you necessarily want out of a fighter. You don't want them thinking too much. You just want them to be acting and or reacting. But with that being said, I already talked about Belal Muhammad and his deceptive quickness. I don't think he has the most power, man. I don't think he has the most pop on his shots. You know what I'm saying? I think Demian Maia, I don't want to regret these words, but I think that Demian Maia and his step in left cross, which is his money shot, that's his biggest punch, right? He might have a power advantage over Belal Muhammad, man. Belal Muhammad might be death by 1,000 cuts, you know what I mean? But he might not be eraser, one-hitter quitter like a Jamahal Hill, you know what I'm saying? So with that being said, man, I think that Belal Muhammad, or let me ask you this question really quickly. My pick is Belal Muhammad. I'm going Belal Muhammad, and I think that he's going to win this fight via decision. But let me just ask you this really quickly, AJ, because I think this is interesting. Do you think that Belal Muhammad, his striking defense, might suffer a little bit because he'll try to be keeping those hands low just to anticipate the shot coming in from Demian Maia? Because that's something I was thinking about. I was like, well, we've seen it before. Who was it? It was Jorge Masvidal against Kamaru Usman. He was like, I thought he was going to grapple, and he caught me with a big one. I kept my hands low because I was waiting for the shot. What do you think, AJ? Give me your take on that.
I mean, that's definitely there. And I definitely think if Belal Muhammad is smart, he's going to be worried about the ground game. You know, the Demian Maia is an old school vet. That's almost like when you think Demian Maia, you think submission almost. There's some old fights where he was still getting KOs when he was a lot younger, but fifth degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's kind of almost unneeded to be said that, yeah, this dude's going to shoot for the takedown, going to shoot for the single leg. And yeah, I mean, if there's one way that we've seen it proven to get done, it's shoot the takedown, come up top to the head. Even in boxing, body head, it works the same exact way when you're going takedown, shoot one to the head. That's an interesting take that I never actually thought of, Derick. I'm glad you brought it up because I do agree that Demian Maia has the power advantage. I think that might be the only one besides the submission specialty advantage she's holding, but it's there. It's there. He's definitely the bigger guy for sure.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I guess the last thing to say on it is that this is an assuring statistic if you're a Belal Muhammad fan, I suppose, but Belal Muhammad has only spent 1.9% of his entire fight time in the bottom position. Like, this dude knows how to stay off of his back, man, which is very, very impressive. So once again, let's just reiterate for the folks at home, AJ, you're going Belal Muhammad, and how does he get it done?
Decision.
Yep, and I'm going decision Belal Muhammad, so that one is an easy one. Now, this one, AJ, we got some stuff to talk about, man, because I just have to say this first and foremost off of the bat. We're talking about a welterweight matchup. Leon Edwards opened up as a minus 500 favorite with a plus 380 comeback for Nathan Diaz, the Stockton kid, man. Let me just tell you this, AJ. This is the biggest underdog position Nate Diaz has been in his entire career. Did you know that when he fought Conor McGregor, the opening odds weren't as bad as this? Did you know that the second highest plus money that Nate Diaz has ever faced in his entire life was when he fought Donald Cerrone at UFC 141. He was a plus 280 underdog in that fight. This is really telling right here because this is people either saying after the Jorge Masvidal BMF championship fight, they were like, yeah, bro, I'm not wasting my money on you ever again. Odds makers are pissed off. Somebody's mad. And I'll tell you, as much of a mismatch, I'll be open and transparent. I think this is a major mismatch. I think that Nate Diaz could have took a bunch of different fights to come back because his fight. So in his last five, he's fought once in 2015, twice in 2016. Those are the McGregor fights. Once in 2019 or twice in 2019. So he hasn't fought since 2019. So you're making your 2-year comeback against Leon Edwards, bro. Like, that is a tall ass task right there. And I don't know why this is happening other than he's probably like, I don't give a fuck. I'm just going to do it. He even said it. He was like, I don't care if I lose. I'm fighting for a title next. Like, in his world, he just, every fight is a title fight. It doesn't matter win or lose. With that being said, AJ, how do you react to the biggest underdog spot Nate Diaz has ever been in his career? How do you react to that?
I mean, that's kind of so that I did not know that. First off, I did not know that was that big of an underdog rating. And I'm kind of shocked by it because I feel like in media popularity, Leon is kind of the more underhyped guy. You would think that as much as not getting as much attention as, all the 3-piece in the soda, the whole, even being from England, he doesn't get as much just press as the Stockton kid does. So I would be under the assumption that Nate Diaz would come in as the hometown favorite, as the guy that's going to get it done. So I'm kind of shocked by that. But personally, I think they have it right. I mean, we've all seen kind of what's going on with Nate Diaz. Yeah, he's a BMF, contender, and he might be one of the BMF in the entire organization. But you get cut up like that, it's only going to be so long until the doctor calls it. And you can only take so much punishment for so long. You know what I'm saying? And that's 100% Diaz's style. It's just punches and bunches. Let's land some shots and see who's going to fall first.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I will have to say this. I am surprised, too, because the verbiage around it is saying people are surprised that there isn't more dumb public money on Nate Diaz. And that's just the casual, right? The one that says, I've never heard of that Edwards guy, but Nate Diaz, I know him. So, yeah, of course he's going to win, right? Like, that's just not the proper way to look at that if you're any serious type of, what I'm saying, making any wagers or whatever. But with that being said, man, I do have to back up Nate Diaz a little bit, just a little bit, right? Because I rewatched that Jorge Masvidal fight recently, clearly doing some fight study for this fight. It's not nearly as one-sided as one would come to believe, with like revisionist history. The way people are talking about it, they're saying like Nate Diaz looked like he didn't belong in the same cage. He didn't belong in the sport of MMA with Jorge Masvidal. And I'll agree, Masvidal was putting it on him. He was working him. Masvidal took the approach of, I'm going to throw everything heavy. I'm going to throw everything hard. I'm going to try to just get you out of there and make you quit. And when Nate Diaz was about to enter the championship rounds, they never did. It got stopped at the end of the third round. Nate Diaz was still there. And Jorge Masvidal was doing a bunch of this. You know, and this is the universal sign for keep your hands up over your head because you're tired, right? So Masvidal was getting tired. I'm not going to say Nate Diaz had a real deal chance of winning the fight on points unless he finished Masvidal, but Masvidal was getting tired. And if there's one thing that we know about Nate Diaz, we know that he's in it for the long haul. That's where he's best at, in the championship rounds, drowning you. Him and his brother train triathlons all the time, right? Paul Felder's getting a dose of that right now. The retired Irish Dragon, he's getting a dose of that and talking about how difficult that is. These dudes have been doing it for the better parts of their career. So with that being said, AJ, let's talk about how this fight plays out. Both of these fighters are southpaws, right? That's important to know. Leon Edwards, man, do you think that they're going to have him on a very tight leash after his eye poke incident with Belal Muhammad? Do you think that there is an opportunity? If there was like a prop bet, you know, what would you think the odds would be for Leon Edwards getting a point deducted in this fight for having his fingers outstretched?
I mean, pretty high. I definitely think that's a favorite in the bets for sure. Because even I was rewatching the fight, and even after the warning by Herb Dean to keep hands up, every single time Leon would check anything, hands were out. Literally fingers out, going the whole time, didn't stop at all. So is that the glove fault? Is that Edwards' fault? I don't know, but I would say that's pretty high for the finger poke, my man. 100%. What do you think?
Well, I think that, I mean, to legitimately get a point taken away, that would either have to be I don't know who's going to be judging or who's going to be reffing this fight, but it would have to be very like, hey, motherfucker, like, no. Like, do you remember that time where Herb Dean, I don't know if you remember this, man, but I was cracking the fuck up. It was a fight and Herb Dean was reffing it, and one of the fighters like grabbed the cage and he was like, hey, motherfucker, like Herb Dean, like legitimately, like you could hear it and everything. It was fucking hilarious. So unless you got a dude who's like that type of hype where he's like, hey, nope, see, point, get the fuck, no, stop it. Because I remember the next UFC event that happened right after the eye poke situation with Belal, they were heavy on it. They were like, nope, you're going to keep your fingers in. You're not going to do that. Like, they were really, really adamant about it. So I think that's going to be an interesting little plot twist to this fight. You know, a little, I don't know what you would call it, you know, just a little caveat to the fight, right? But like I said, let's actually break this down for what it's worth, man. Leon Edwards, I think, is going to take that Jorge Masvidal approach, and I think he's going to try to blast Diaz and try to get him out of there early. What happens, because Leon Edwards has fought recently. It was his fight against RDA back in 2019. Not that recently, but just 2 fights ago. That was a 5-round fight. So who do you think is fresher come round 4, AJ? That's always my question.
That's hard. That's hard, man. I think with this one, who's fresher in round 4 in the championship rounds, I always got to go Nate Diaz. We haven't seen him crack yet. We haven't seen him wilt at all in as far as the the momentum or the his energy levels or anything like that. And his output always stays high. Now, that being said, Leon Edwards, that dude's no joke. All right. First off, this dude, very powerful, long, lanky. He can keep you at the end of the punches, very talented. And the dude's a bomber, right? Like, he doesn't get enough credit, I think. Like I said, very underrated, but this dude can bang, all right? So, yeah, I mean, I think Nate Diaz is going to be a little fresher as far as the fight goes, just because maybe he's going to be throwing less pop on the shots, more volume instead of power. Where Leon Edwards, man, if he gets the opportunity, he's going to start throwing 5, 6, 7 heavy punches just to try to get you out in the first round, which he can. He's very, very strong. So I'm going Nate Diaz with that one. Who are you thinking?
I think that it's going to be interesting to see because, like, it depends on a couple different intangibles, right? Is any wrestling going to take place into this? You know what I mean? Is Nate Diaz going to take a different approach than he did in the Masvidal fight? Is he going to try to just come out there and say, like, listen, man, I'm going to throw 4 and 5 every time that I throw, you know? Because that is one thing that I really do like about Nate Diaz is that he's not going to throw 1. And for a counter striker like Leon Edwards, right? Oftentimes, he's countering off of 1, off of 2. You know what I mean? And Nate Diaz will be like, well, I'll throw 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, they're not really, it's literally shots like this, like, you know, just kind of slapping shots, pawing away shots, as opposed to just really sticking you, you know what I mean? Like a Leon Edwards, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how that one plays out. But I definitely think that Nate Diaz, if you're going with history, you're going to say that come round 4, man, he's going to be ready to go. And we don't know if his opposition will be. But I want to ask you about mind games, man. I want to talk about psychological warfare. We know Nate Diaz is a big, big master of the psychological warfare, kind of like a Conor McGregor. Do you think that he's going to be talking to Leon Edwards like how he was talking to Jorge Masvidal? And do you think that Leon Edwards, like, who's to say Nate Diaz is like, yeah, I'm gonna, you know, give you the 2-piece in a soda like Masvidal did, or so, you know, just something crazy like that, you know what I mean? And try to get in his head. Do you think Edwards would fall for the bait in a situation like that?
I kind of do. I kind of do, especially with how Edwards reacted after the whole three-piece and soda incident, where like the whole crowd came running. He's like, I'm going to dust him. I'm going to dust him in his English accent, whatever he was saying. And so I kind of think he's got a little bit of that gangster in him. You know, not a lot of a credit gets given to the gangsters across the pond, but they're out there, man. They'll shiv you for sure. And Leon grew up in the streets, man. He's dangerous for sure. But I definitely think Nate's gonna be talking some shit, gonna be getting in his head. He's a master of it. He knows the game plan. He knows how to clown. He knows how to make you press those buttons, get you a little bit antsy. And I think Leon Edwards has that kind of fighter in him, you know, that kind of mentality where he's gonna be like, all right, bro, like let's go. Like I'm not taking this shit. So I think it could work. I hope it works. I hope they're talking shit. That's gonna be fun to see.
It would, and I think that there's something deep down in the database, in the memory banks of Leon Edwards, that says if someone ever punks me like that again, I'm not gonna react the way I did last time. I'm gonna do something about it, because it's kind of gone away. Would you agree? It's kind of the three-piece and a soda. It's more like, oh, Jorge Masvidal, three-piece and soda, but who did he do it against? Like, it's not even memorable enough to be like, oh yeah, that English dude. Like, it was that random guy that he got it against, man. But let's talk about just their records overall, right? 18-3 is Leon Edwards, 20-12 is Nate Diaz. So they got similar, experience, kind of, not really, you know what I'm saying? Like, Diaz has probably 10 more fights or whatever the case may be, but 15-10 in the UFC for Diaz, 10-2 for Leon Edwards. But what's important to note about this is Diaz, obviously, he kind of retired from the 155 division. You know, his last 4 fights have taken place at 170 pounds, and he has gone 2-2 in that span. So it's not really the greatest spot to be in if you're Nate Diaz. If he loses this fight, AJ, clearly there's a lot of pressure on him. I was talking about this with a colleague of mine earlier, and just saying that, like, I think that the pressure is on Leon Edwards, but in a weird way, it's also on Nate Diaz, because if you're Nate Diaz, yeah, losing to McGregor, okay, whatever, you know what I mean? Losing to Leon Edwards, the casuals are gonna be like, who? You lost to, huh? I'm not tuning into this fight. You know, I don't want to watch you fight anymore. If you know what I mean. Who do you think the pressure is truly on more? Because being a minus 500 favorite, that's a lot of pressure right there.
Yeah, and I definitely think the pressure's on Edwards to perform. You know, he kind of he had a really good outing. Don't get me wrong. He had a really good outing against Belal Muhammad. He was controlling the fight. I definitely think he won the first round. He was winning the second until the eye poke. But I would feel like the pressure is a little more on Nate for exactly that. Sure, this sport might be a what have you done for me lately? And what we've lately seen has been Nate Diaz just say whatever he's going to do and then go out and do it. No other fighter can do that besides Conor McGregor. And that's kind of a double-edged sword he's fighting with. Yeah, you know, you're bad. You know, you talk all this game, you can make people's heads, you're going to stalk and slap everybody. You even stalk and slap the boss. You know, he's gangster. He's gangster for sure. But what if he loses? Man, the risks are high. The reward is very, very high as well. And even if he does lose, he still thinks he's getting a title shot, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't think Nate Diaz has that kind of star power, that kind of pull anymore, especially if you lose to, quote unquote, a nobody from across the pond.
I'm going to have to disagree with you, because I do think Nate Diaz is a star. I think that it doesn't matter who he fights. People are going to tune in just because of the spectacle that is Nate Diaz, but he also has to bring the persona. You have to bring the bad boy with you, you know what I mean? You can't be how McGregor wanted to come out all nice and respectful to Port. You can't do that if you're Nate Diaz, because your whole entire image is the bad boy. He's a bad motherfucker. He is legitimately, man. Listen, second degree BJJ black belt, 8-time fight of the night winner, the tough number 5 winner, third most submission wins at 155 with 7, and he, like I said, biggest underdog spot of his career. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, AJ. The last thing that I have to note is that both of these fighters do average over a takedown per fight, but Leon Edwards has a 70% takedown defense. So if this is just a striking affair, both of them are really good on the feet, man. And I guess the last thing to note for Nate Diaz, I talked about those combinations, man. Leon Edwards can't. So you've heard this, right? Leon Edwards doesn't fight as well off of his back foot. That's what Belal Muhammad says. So that's what he wanted to do against him. Nate Diaz can put you on the back foot simply because he's long, man. Those shots are just out there, just, pushing you back. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out, AJ. And then you already alluded to it before we give our pick. Over under on Stockton slaps in this fight. I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go 2. Give me the over under on 2.
Oh, I'm going over. I'm
Over
going
two?
over on that all day. I think he's
Okay.
going to be slapping like at least twice around.
Oh shit. Okay. All right. Right on. Because it's funny, right? Because to him, in a way, that's kind of like how Kevin Holland took down Derek Brunson. He was like, that was just the win for me right there. Like I think to him, if he Stockton slaps you, he can hold that over you forever. He's like, I slapped that motherfucker. Like, what are you talking about, right? But with that being said, man, let's go picks, man. I'm going Leon Edwards. And listen, I think that as much as Nate Diaz is the hometown hero, he's from Stockton, California. I grew up 30 minutes away in Modesto, California. Trust me, him and Nick Diaz originally, but him and his brother were the pinnacles of Central Valley MMA when I was growing up. Kind of like how you got that Diego Sanchez, you just got that personal kind of connection, right? I'm going Leon Edwards, man. KO round 4. You know what I'm saying? I think he gets him out of there. And I don't think it's going to be a knockout. I think it'll be a TKO, another cut type situation. You feel me? Because, listen, Leon Edwards, he gets you in that ground and pound with those elbows. It's going to be very similar to the Masvidal fight, I personally believe. But yeah, give me your pick and how, AJ.
Yeah, I'm with you, Derek. I don't get me wrong, I'm a big Diaz fighter fan, man. I love these guys. They've been doing it for years, but I'm going Leon Edwards, and I'm actually going by decision. I'm kind of shocked with that TKO finish because I definitely think if there's gonna be a way that it gets ended early, it's gonna be by a doctor stoppage. I don't want to see that, so I'm going by decision. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you, man, and like I said, I don't want it. I don't even want these words to come out of my mouth, man. But when you saw that cut get opened up in that Jorge Masvidal fight, that's just scar tissue, man. You know what I mean? It's been a while, but all you got to do is hit it a couple times, and it opens it right back up. You know what I'm saying? The unfortunate part about the human physiology, right? But all right, man, we got the first title fight. I said this is the people's main event, man. This is the main event to me. I'm sorry. The rematch at the top, cool. We're going to talk about it, of course, but let's break this one down, man. Deus Da Guerra, Deiveson, Figueiredo opens up as a minus 240 favorite against the baby assassin Brandon Moreno. How are you a minus 240 favorite when your last title fight was so close? Now, I can see how some people can argue, oh, well, Deiveson Figueiredo would have won very easily if it wasn't for that point that was deducted when he hit a full blast teep kick to the nuts on Brandon Moreno, man, like a full blast, man. So like I can totally understand and I can sympathize with that. And I'll tell you what, man, when I was doing my own assessments, part of me says I just don't see how a man like Figueiredo, who is an absolute killer in the cage, how he would lose his title so early in this run. You know what I mean? But with that being said, it doesn't matter, what I think or whatnot. What matters is what happens in the cage. So their last fight, man, let's just do a little bit of recap, AJ. I already know what my score is off the top. I already understand who won what round in my personal opinion. But I just want, off the top of your head, AJ, who won that fight to you?
Oh, that's a hard question, man. I was actually watching this fight back thinking the exact same thing. And I definitely think both fighters had their instances. But if the point deduction wasn't there, I'd have given it to Figueiredo. Don't get me wrong, Moreno had the chances. He had his times where he had Figueiredo backed up, hurt, and he'd had Figueiredo in these positions. We've never seen anybody have him. We've never seen Figueiredo stress, or at the same point, we've never seen Deiveson Figueiredo hit somebody and they take it. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, Moreno got caught a couple times and he was on some wobbly feet in the first and the second, so it was there, but it just proved the Mexican warrior heart is strong in that one. And, man, he's coming back. He's coming back for blood. He gets a little bit of pressure on him. He's going for it. It was a good fight. But if I had to choose, I would say Figueiredo won. A close decision for sure.
It was absolutely close. And outside of the point, like if that point never got deducted, I would have gave it 48-47 Figueiredo, right? Like easy, you know what I'm saying? But with that point, 47-47 was my tally, man. You know what I mean? Even Deiveson Figueiredo even won the 5th round because Brandon Moreno later revealed. So we need to talk about the context too. People don't know about this. I feel like they don't, or they forgot about it. But for Deiveson Figueiredo, listen, this dude was hospitalized like the day before the fight or whatever. He had a stomach virus or something crazy. Some people say food poisoning. Some people say whatever. But he was compromised. Not only that, but both of these fighters had to make weight twice within the span of 21 days. So let's just talk about it really quickly, right? So both of them fought at UFC 255. Deiveson Figueiredo, he knocked out Alex Perez first round. I think it was an easy, clean, get him out of there, right? Brandon Moreno, he fought Brandon Royval. It was the Brandon on Brandon, and Brandon Royval, his shoulder popped. TKO win for Brandon Moreno. Shout out to you, right? However, we had a couple of, people pulling out of fights. The UFC 256 main card got decimated with the fighter withdrawals. So what happens? Deus Da Guerra says, well, I could step in. Brandon Moreno says, Yeah, me too. You know what I'm saying? What do? They scrapped and they produced one of the greatest fights of the year, arguably, right, on 21 days notice, man. So with that being said, I personally believe this, AJ. I personally believe that in that first fight, as great as it was, as much of a fight of the year performance as it was, neither of those fighters were at 100%. We didn't get to see nearly, like, that was the tip of the iceberg in terms of what these two can do in that cage, I personally believe. So with that being said, last piece of context, Brandon Moreno said in the 5th round of his fight, and his lead arm, his jab arm, which he was jabbing Figueiredo all up and down, you know what I'm saying, the cage, he suffered a shoulder injury and he couldn't really throw. And Joe Rogan just kept saying, I think his arm's broken, you know what I mean? Like, this dude's something, he's not throwing, and he was kind of right, you know what I mean? Not really, but kind of right. Brandon Moreno was compromised in that 5th round. So who's to say that Brandon Moreno couldn't have squeaked out that 5th round if he was fully healthy? I don't want to play what ifs. I just wanted to give the context of the first matchup. Now we're here, and we're going to find out on Saturday really who is the better man. I'm going to say this before we start, AJ. I'm calling it right now. I could totally be proven wrong, and I will eat crow if I need to. But I think that this has the makings of a trilogy type fight. This is a Arturo Gotti versus Mickey Ward type situation, nutshot included, because I think Gotti got a point taken away for nutshot and Mickey Ward. But with that being said, I think that this is going to be that caliber. I think that if you can understand the flow of logic, folks, I think you know who I'm rolling with tonight. But I think that this is going to be one of those contests, man, where it's going to be John Jones, DC. You know what I mean? It's going to be a situation like that. So all my personal stuff aside, AJ, let's talk about the big measurables that are different. There's only a couple of things here, right? Brandon Moreno enjoys a 70-inch reach. That's 2-inch advantage on Deiveson Figueiredo. Striking accuracy. Figueiredo lands bombs, right? Those power in all of his shots. Did you know he has the highest accuracy out of all the flyweights actively in the division? 56% accuracy, throwing or landing 3.3 significant strikes per minute. Now, for comparison, Brandon Moreno 3.41 significant strikes per minute at a 38% clip. With that being said, man, Figueiredo, when he hits you, he lands. When he lands, generally speaking, you go to sleep, man. Who has the edge in this matchup, man? Who's living in whose head rent free? You know what I mean? Someone's got to have a psychological advantage in this fight.
I kind of think Moreno's living in the head of Figueiredo right now. It's just because Figueiredo, when he usually touches everyone else in the division, they go to sleep. Now, it might have been the weight cut, but at the same point, Moreno had the exact same weight cut, and that could have been why he was getting rocked early in the 1st and 2nd round. But if I had to guess, I think Moreno's living nicely. He's got his shoes on the couch in the champ's head. And it's kind of a more so a feeling of like, how did I not put this dude away? I know I'm bigger than him. I know I'm stronger than him. I hurt him. Why didn't I put him away? Now, that might not be the case. And, they could be, Deiveson Figueiredo could be living in Moreno's head. But I definitely think Moreno's the one with just at least a little bit of advantage. Because technically, he didn't lose the fight. Yeah. So it's kind of a moral victory at the same point that he didn't get finished as well. He didn't technically lose. So it's a hard one. And I know draws are like kissing your cousin. Nobody wants to do it. So it's a kind of a here nor there statement. But I think Moreno's got the little bit of at least a psychological edge on that. As far as the stats, the tangibles, I think Deiveson Figueiredo, he's got the strength advantage. Moreno has kind of the grit just strictly off the Mexican heart. But don't get me wrong, Figueiredo has that exact same grit going forward. He's dirty. He's mean. Like I said before in the last fight, he's the heel. He's the dude that's playing the heel. He's that bad boy, and I love to see it fight. So, yeah, a long convoluted answer, Derek. But I'm going Moreno with the advantage, at least as far as mental aspect. Who are you giving it to?
I definitely have to agree, man. And let me hit on that point that you had made about the draws, right? Nobody wants to do it, and because of that reason, it was actually the 4th draw in UFC championship history. So there's only 4 of all time, right? And it's the first one since T. Wood versus Wonderboy Thompson, their first fight. It's the first championship draw since then, man. And that was some years ago. You know what I'm saying? So it's going to be interesting, man. I definitely think Brandon Moreno, he was not nearly expected to have the type of performance that he had. And I don't think he was expected to really stand a chance against Figueiredo, who was just absolutely mauling everybody. I mean, you destroyed Joseph Benavidez twice, and then you go and knock out Alex Perez. It was like there's nobody left for him. He's supposed to run through Moreno, and then Moreno puts on that performance. You know what I'm saying? I think that Figueiredo is probably, like, when you saw him cry because he got the draw and he got to keep the belt, I think that he may have thought like, I could fucking lose this fight, bro. You know what I mean? So I definitely think that he's going to be coming out to prove a point. And with that being said, man, sometimes you go out there and you try to prove a point and you put yourself out of position and you're not flowing, you're not loose, you're not you, because you're out there and you're too dedicated to a specific plan. Now, AJ, I'm going to be honest with you. I do think that Moreno has an edge here. And I think he's going to, I hope, this is my hope. This is if I was his coach, and I don't know shit, but if I was his coach, I would be like, you know what? One thing that you need to double down on, because you had much more success than anyone thought, Brandon Moreno needs to double down on the wrestling, man. He was able to just take down Figueiredo anytime that he wanted to. It felt like he was having so much success on the feet. He was just like, nah, no need. But when he won, like those takedowns that he got in the second round, I believe in the fourth round, arguably are the reason why that fight went to a draw. It's because he was able to control. And there was one round, I think it was round 3 or whatever, where Figueiredo landed a takedown on Moreno and won the fight off the takedown, right? So it's like whoever can control where the fight takes place, you're going to control the fight, man. Neither of these fighters have been finished in their career. All of their losses have been via decision, and we can say the same for Adesanya versus Vettori. So that's what makes these title fights really special, man. Who do you think is going to be fresher in round 4? Because in the first fight, Moreno was clearly fresher. We know Figueiredo cuts a lot of weight, but it was crazy that Moreno was fresher to me because Figueiredo was blasting heavy body shots, man, the whole entire fight. And I thought that that would really, be like a difference maker. It didn't really prove to be, man. What do you think?
I think Figueiredo, the champ's, going to be a little fresher going in. I just from off of what I saw in the last fight, it's exactly that. He kind of was more so looks lost and not really tired. If you understand what I'm saying, he looked like kind of confused that what he's used to doing wasn't happening, and it's kind of getting in his head a little mental game. He didn't look exhausted. He just looked lost, if that makes sense. Who would you give it to?
I'm going baby assassin. And the reason why is because, like I said, it's that entire situation of he's not throwing 100% on his shots. You know what I mean? He's Nate Diaz in kind of his situation. He's throwing a lot of volume, hitting you with a lot of jabs, and he might throw the real power on the big counter shot or whatever, but he's never going full blast how Figueiredo is going full blast everything. You notice Figueiredo, part of the reason why he can compensate and go full blast is because he keeps his hands really low, right? So you don't got to sit there, go full blast, and then keep your hands up like this for, 15 minutes, 25 minutes or whatever. That's just grueling. You know what I mean? Nobody wants to do that. So I think that Brandon Moreno is going to be the fresher fighter. However, it just depends on the wrestling, because if you can tire yourself out with the wrestling, you're probably going to tire out your opponent with the wrestling as well, as long as you're successful on your shots. But I think this is going to be another fight of the night situation. Like I said, I already said it previously. I think this has got trilogy written all over it, man. I'm just expecting crazy fight, and I'm still confused with these odds, man. How are you a plus 200 underdog? This is just a live dog to me. This is an underdog who has every opportunity to win the fight. I think that he's going to be very motivated because he sniffed becoming the first full-blood Mexican champion in UFC history. He sniffed it. And you get that little taste, he's going to be salivating at the mouth, man. He's going to be ready to go. However, Deus Da Guerra, this dude does a little mean mug when he's in the cage. His lips twitching and shit. The dude's a little off, man. This is why I keep going back and forth. This is a toss-up to me. So with that being said, AJ, let me give the last statistics before we give our pick. Deus Da Guerra, BJJ black belt, most finishes in the flyweight division with 7, most submissions in the flyweight division with 3, second most wins at flyweight with 9, second longest win streak at flyweight with 5. However, Brandon Moreno, longest average fight time in the flyweight division. So this dude is there for a while, right? 14 minutes and 9 seconds. Third most significant strikes landed at flyweight with 482, and he's tied for the second most takedowns at flyweight with 19. Who are you picking and why?
Oh, Derick, I'm going with the champ, Figueiredo, my man. I definitely think he learned a lesson from last time. The cut's going to be a little bit better. He's going to come in with that heat, that bad boy attitude. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But don't get me wrong, this one's actually a toss-up for me. I literally, before I wrote this down, I was writing down that Brandon Moreno was going to win. So I definitely think he could get it done. He proved all of us wrong. He proved that he deserves to be in the fight. Moreno is a true dog, and that plus 200 underdog status is absolutely mind-blowing. He could easily win this fight. And this one's a toss-up to me. But for me, I'm going Figueiredo. I'm going with the champ, and I'm going by decision. Who you got?
Okay, well, I'm going to go Brandon, the baby assassin Moreno. And the reason why is clearly all of the things that I just outlined previously. But this was a little reminiscent to me to when Tyson Fury fought Deontay Wilder the first time. And in the 12th round, Fury, got up like the Undertaker, you know what I mean, after being knocked out, and then won the round by walking Deontay Wilder down. And then it's like this light bulb clicked, or light bulbs, went on, and he was all like, oh, that's how I fight that dude. Got it. Makes sense, right? I think that Moreno found a couple of holes in the game of Figueiredo, and I think he's going to be looking to exploit. I think he's going to be able to review the tape, man, and really sit there and go and get it. I think his manager is Jason House, man, and Jason House has got like a roster of killers underneath him right now. So he's got a good surrounding, a good environment around him, man, people who are allowing him to flourish. It's not like he's coming from some raggedy camp or anything like that, man. So it'll be a good one. I'm going the baby assassin, decision victory, and new, man. It's going to be a banger. Last time I picked and new, I was right. Those are the Rose Namajunas one, but let's see if lightning can strike twice, my man. So with that being said, AJ, before we open up, well, we got Israel Adesanya, Marvin Vettori, minus 240 for the champ. Israel Adesanya, plus 200 for Marvin Vettori. Much more appropriate betting line, if you ask me. But we have a question off the top, AJ. Let me move this down a little bit. This is from our boy Psych, man. So shout out to you, man. I always love the questions. He says, if Israel wins, who's next? Do we get a Robert Whittaker rematch, or do you think Robert Whittaker can get it done? So let me take this off the board, AJ. I'm gonna let you answer that forum question first, my man. What do you think?
Who's next? And is it Rob? I don't think Rob can get it done, and I don't think Rob wants that smoke, to be completely honest with you, Derek. I do think he was offered this fight and he turned it down. Who gets Israel Adesanya next? I'm gonna throw a curveball at you, my brother, and I'm going Kelvin Gastelum. I think Kelvin Gastelum gave Izzy the hardest fight of his life. I think Kelvin Gastelum stepped in against replaced Paulo Costa in his next fight. So we're going to see, man, if Kelvin Gastelum could get it done, get a good win against, it's
Jared Cannonier.
Jared Cannonier, thank you. Jared Cannonier. If he can do that, I think that's a good fight, because Cannonier was easily slotted to go and fight the champ, at least here soon. If Kelvin Gastelum can do that, I think it was a good rematch. And like I said, he gave him the hardest fight of so far we've seen, besides obviously Jan Blachowicz, but that's a different weight division. I don't really want to count that one. So I'm going Kelvin Gastelum, kind of a left field pick for me. Who you got and why?
Well, I'm gonna say, let's answer the question for myself too, right? Is Robert Whittaker next? I say yes. And the reason why is because he's the clear number one contender. You know what I mean? I think the only reason that Robert Whittaker isn't in this fight, I think the only reason Marvin Vettori is here is because Israel Adesanya said, I want to fight in June. Robert Whittaker literally just fought 2 months ago, a 5-round fight with Kelvin Gastelum. And though it was a clean sweep, right? It's not really enough time. You know what I'm saying? The man needs a little more time. Call it ducking, call it running, call it whatever you want. But I am very confident that Robert Whittaker would give Israel Adesanya a real deal test this time around, man. I don't think that he'll go lunging in all crazy like he did before, just trying to get his hands on Israel Adesanya. I think he'll learn from his lessons. Let's not forget the man is a former champ, dude. This dude was literally the king of the division, right? So I think that Robert Whittaker can get it done. If they fought 10 times, does he win 10 times? No. Does he win 8 times? No. Did he win 5 times? Probably not. I think that I'll give him like 3 out of 10 times. But 3 out of 10 times is more than 0 out of 10 times. And with that being said, I honestly believe that he has a real chance to upset, given the opportunity once again. However, I will say I'm going to throw in a little bit of a curveball as well, AJ, just because we always hear Adesanya say, you know who I would love, even if he got the light heavyweight title, he's like, you know who I would go down back for? Darren Till. I would love to fight Darren Till. So let Darren Till get healthy, let him rack up a couple wins, and let's see when the next time Israel Adesanya fights, because who's to say? UFC is a crazy business, man. If there's one thing that I've learned is that the guy who rightfully deserves to fight for the title next doesn't always get it, man, because there's no such thing as deserved in the UFC. So with that being said, questions aside, let's break this one down, AJ. I'm going to be honest with you, man. I told you this is not the people's main event, in my opinion. This is a fight. And I can't say much more about it. I have very strong feelings on this one, but I don't have much to say. So with that being said, Israel Adesanya, death by 1,000 feints. Once again, he killed Marvin Vettori with 1,000,000 feints. I watched the fight back. Marvin Vettori won 1 round in that fight. He won round 3. Please, if you feel different, please stop me. He won 1 round. Israel Adesanya won rounds 1. Rounds 1 and 2. He outstruck him in rounds 1 and 2. He got outstruck in round 3. But at the end of the day, man, Marvin Vettori on the feet has very little to offer for Israel Adesanya. His one saving grace, the one area where Marvin Vettori truly can win the fight. And this is what I was talking with folks. We have an interview out with Kai Bennett. By the time this episode is out, it should be out on the channel. Definitely go give us some love. It's an hour-plus long interview, man. Full in-depth. We really go down into her last win and plus some UFC 263 picks too. So that's what I was doing with her. So go check it out, folks. But with that being said, she said she could very likely see Marvin Vettori upsetting. She said 65% and still, and the rest, Marvin Vettori could get it done. And let's be honest. Israel Adesanya, he got smothered against Jan Blachowicz in terms of the grappling, but Jan Blachowicz is the champion 20 pounds above Israel Adesanya's weight class, man. Like, that's not the same thing as Marvin Vettori. With that being said, though, I mean, just what do you think, man? Give me some thoughts on this one, AJ. I can't be the only one sitting here hating, you know what I'm saying?
No, man, I ain't. I'm not going to be hating on Marvin. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, I like the strikers. I was not impressed with Marvin's last victory or his last fight in general at all. But can he get it done? I don't know. The last fight they had, I agree. He won the third round, but I think it's only because Israel Adesanya took it off. He won the first two, and he thought, I'm going to coast a little bit. I'm going to do this. And he got outstruck, which I did not expect at all to see coming from Israel Adesanya. But again, how long ago was that? At least 5-6 years. I don't have the exact data on my notes, but it's an older time, as well as Israel Adesanya just coming off of the Jan Blachowicz loss. I think he learned a lot, man. There's nothing worse than getting your face rubbed in the dirt, especially in front of a live crowd, or in front of a TV audience, excuse me. So I definitely think Israel Adesanya kind of took that, put a little chip on his shoulder, and he's going to be working the wrestling. Old Marvin, angry Marvin, this dude he's not planning on going out and standing and banging. We've already seen that happen. Marvin's going to go out there, go shoot for the takedown. And Israel Adesanya kind of knows where that game plan's going. And with the city kickboxing team he has, I don't really think it's going to be much of an issue for him to at least be working it as much as he needs to be. Now, can I be completely proven wrong? 100%. Marvin could easily take this dude down, outweigh Israel Adesanya on game day, which was when it really matters. The weigh-in before, okay, cool, you made weight. Now the game day, you outweigh him by 20 pounds again. We've seen Jan Blachowicz outweigh somebody where it matters in the wrestling and actually make a big difference. Where I hate bringing up this fight, but the Logan Paul Floyd Mayweather, we saw that weight didn't really matter in boxing anyway. I mean, it does. Don't get me wrong. You fight a dude who's 200 pounds heavier than you, yeah, he's going to hurt you. But if you're that same level, when levels meet, they're at the pinnacle of the sport. Weight in wrestling matters, boxing not so much. And if Israel Adesanya can keep the distance and their weights come somewhat the same, I think the levels are just going to shine. So that's where I'm going with it.
Yeah, man. I think skill-wise, you know what I mean? It's just two different levels of opposition. I'm right there 100% with you. And for the context, when they fought, it was Israel Adesanya's second UFC fight. He was not a champion, clearly, you know what I mean? And Marvin Vettori was his fifth UFC fight. And since then, Marvin Vettori, this is a cool stat, man, and I agree. Since that loss, Marvin Vettori has only lost one of his 17 rounds that he's fought since fighting and losing to Israel Adesanya. So he's been on a rampage. This dude's on, a 5-fight win streak. And I asked Kai Bennett, I said, hey, man, if you wrestle your way to a championship, do you respect that? And she was like, well, listen, man, in a championship fight, that is the one time where your goal is to win. You're going home with that belt. It doesn't matter. You can experiment all you want in all the other fights. In the championship fight, you have one job to do, and you do it however it needs to get done. So with that being said, man, even though Marvin Vettori is kind of plodding offensively, this dude's grappling is legit. There's no way to go around that. You can't disrespect it or discount it. He's a BJJ brown belt, second longest average fight time at 185, third most significant strikes at 185. But let me tell you this, AJ, Israel Adesanya tied for Chris Weidman with the second longest win streak at 9 at the middleweight division, and the second most title fight wins with 4 in UFC middleweight history. History, not actively. History, all fighters. So with that being said, like I said, a little bit different levels. I will say Israel Adesanya, he had a lot of success with the calf kicks against Marvin Vettori, man. I think that he's going to go back to the well on those ones, man. The feints, the calf kicks. He missed on a couple big shots, right? But Marvin Vettori, I'll tell you one thing he has honed is his left cross out of that southpaw stance, man. He's honed that one. And if he lands that one, he could get you backing up, man. He can get you in trouble. And if he connects on that one and then gets you on the ground, man, it's going to be a long night. And there's nothing that we want to see less than 5 rounds of wrestling in a title fight. But if that's what it, comes down to, the only people who are going to be mad are the fans. Because Marvin Vettori is saying, I'm the first Italian champ, 6-fight win streak. And hey, I got the belt, so you guys can fuck off, right? So, like, it's going to be a matchup, right? But I agree with the betting line, -240 Israel Adesanya, +200 for Marvin Vettori. I think that Marvin Vettori has to fight a flawless fight if he wants to upset. And that leads me to my pick, Israel Adesanya. And still, I think that it's going to be a decision victory, AJ. Let me just tell you, Marvin Vettori, he is the first fighter in mixed martial arts to take Israel Adesanya to a judge's decision in his career. He was 13-0 with 13 KOs prior to when they fought. Marvin Vettori has never been finished in his career, man. He's a tough motherfucker, bro. This dude is tough. And for that reason, even though Israel Adesanya's game plan is slow cook him in the first, fry him in the second, I think you're going to have to go all 5 rounds with the Italian dream, my man. Who's your pick and why?
Yeah, I'm actually right with you, Derek. I'm going Israel Adesanya, and I'm debating. I can 100% see a decision, but I'm going KO round 4. I definitely think it's going to go a little slow in the beginning, going to kind of wind up. Marvin's going to be shooting for takedowns all day long. I don't know if he'll actually land one, but it's going to get each other tired. And that being said, Marvin's a little bit bigger, a little more muscle, a little more lactic acid in those muscles. I think he's going to be a little tired, leading to Adesanya getting that KO in the round 4. But this could easily go to a decision. Don't get me wrong. Marvin could get that takedown, drag it out, win a couple rounds, and we're seeing him, 48-47 in the 5th. We'll see where it goes. But I got Israel Adesanya, KO, round 4. I'm excited for it.
Well, there we go, folks. So that is the UFC 263 main card, AJ. And we got to go to our next piece of business.
And now, the all factors considered fight of the night picks are in.
My man, there's a lot of ways we can go here, AJ, but let's knock them out. Who is your fight of the night for UFC 263?
Ooh, Derek, I'm going back to the top of the main card with Bear Jew and Sweet Dreams. Is that the correct name?
Sweet Dreams, Jamahal Hill, yeah.
Sweet Dreams, Jamahal Hill, brother. I think that's going to be a scrap. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Who you going with?
Well, it'd be too easy to say Deiveson Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno, so that's just a given. I'm not even going to talk about that one, but we have a couple of them in the prelims that I think are going to be absolute bangers. And I'm going to give you, well, I'll give you one of them. I'm not even going to. We got a lot of good ones, right? I'm going to say Eric Anders versus Darren Stewart, the rematch, man. I think the dentist, Darren Stewart, is going to come for revenge because he got a little embarrassed in that first fight, man. I was not expecting Eric Anders to perform like that. And this one isn't going to be fought at middleweight. It'll be taking place at 205 pounds. So they're going to be a little more juiced up, not in a bad way, but, a little more filled up. You know what I'm saying? And they're going to be ready to bang, man. So listen, that's the fight of the night, folks. And let me just give you, before we get out of here, AJ, clearly drop a like, subscribe, all that good stuff, right? But before we get out of here, I want to talk about next week's fights, and just there's going to be some really, really good ones, folks. So these are a couple big fights coming up that you can be looking forward to next week at Fight Night 190. It's headlined by the Korean Zombie and Dan 50K Ige. You're going to have to move that up to 75K or whatever the bonuses are now, you know what I'm saying? That's going to be a banger. We got Cheeto Vera, Marlon Vera facing off against Davey Grant. That's going to be a very underrated. That's like a sleeper. So if that's a sleeper, folks, I'm just saying. In our prelims, though, we got Kanako Murata. She's one of my favorite judokas who are a young prospect in the UFC right now. She's facing off against another one of my favorite prospects in a BJJ ace, Vina Jandiroba. Banger alert right there, but grappling banger alert, right? And then lastly, King Casey O'Neill. She makes her second UFC fight against Laura Procopio, right? And we saw Laura Procopio. She had a lot of success in her last fight, man. And it was, I think it was at the fight where Rose Namajunas and all that good stuff, UFC 261, I believe. But with that being said, folks, that's everything that we got for you. Drop a like, subscribe, head over to our YouTube channel, like I said, to go see our Kai Bennett interview. And listen, go share it with your friends, do all that good stuff. You see where little button, somewhere over there. There we go, right there, bow, subscribe. You know what it is, folks. Catch us on Monday for the post show. Until next time, folks. Peace.